What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Movie Emporium's Worst Films of 2021. The films that I hated very, very much in the year 2021. Now, before we begin, as always, if you like what you see, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button as well as commenting below any videos you watch, including this one. So, it's been another crazy year. A lot of films got pushed back to this year. Theaters have been kind of getting back to normal. We are at a point where they're kind of going back to the pandemic era. It's been a mess of a year, but we finally had a lot of films that we've been waiting for to come out. But the problem is, a lot of those films that I was anticipating may not have been as good as I was hoping. So I hate to do these types of lists because I love movies, and talking about the worst is always the hardest to do because I know these films, a lot of people work on them, but we have to talk about them because I find it fascinating to find out what people really didn't like in the year and how kind of similar and kind of different our opinions are. So I will be trying to be as non-yelling as possible when it comes to this list, but I have to be truthful in my opinion of these films. And so here's some dishonorable mentions. There's 4 of them. They're pretty bad films, but they didn't make the top 10, but they include John in the Hole, which I saw at Sundance. Hated that film very, very much. Red Notice, which is of course a overpaid, very stupidly done movie. Didn't like it. Appeared on Netflix. Halloween Kills, which continues a Halloween trilogy which I really, really don't like. And of course Jungle Cruise, which is Disney's attempt to do Pirates of the Caribbean. Completely flopped, completely failed, terrible movie. So those 4 films, they're not the worst of the worst, but they are pretty bad in their own right. And so with that said, let's do number 10 of the worst of the year, which is Matrix Resurrections. Had some great trailers. It had some interesting ideas that it was presenting in those trailers. I was looking forward to this movie. It wasn't in my top anticipated films of the year, but after I saw those trailers and I saw what Lana Wachowski was trying to do, I was intrigued. But what Lily Wachowski said about this film not needing to happen was completely deserved because this movie is awful. It doesn't make any sense. It's a movie that tries to be unique, but once again, like Matrix Revolutions, completely falls under the guise of just wink and a nod type scenario, and I just didn't like it. I tried to be optimistic and tried to be a little positive in my spoiler-filled review with Jacob Anders Reviews. But I think overall, I think this is just a complete failure of a film. I think it just doesn't work on any level and is convoluted. So number 10 is The Matrix Resurrections. I wish I had loved this film, but I truly didn't. So number 10, Matrix Resurrections. Number 9 is Number 9 is a film that a lot of people love. I did not like this film at all. This film is one of M. Night Shyamalan's worst films. This movie is weird. It has some of the weirdest dialogue, has some of the weirdest character choices, and is a movie that I think is one of the most mind-bogglingly bad films I've ever seen from the director himself. And that's saying a lot because he's made some terrible films. But Old is just a movie that just doesn't work on any level for me. I think it's just stupid in every nature. I think it tries to be unique and try to tell an interesting story. I know a lot of people love this film, but I just found everything wrong about it. I felt it was just a very big misstep for M. Night Shyamalan. So at number 9 is Old, and at number 8 we have Now, I haven't released my best of the year list, but Last Duel will be on that list as at least an honorable mention. But House of Gucci, like Old, is baffling to watch. It has some of the worst character moments in history, including Jared Leto. It's just a movie that is overlong, is overwrought, and shows the worst tendencies of Ridley Scott. I don't understand what he was doing here. I felt completely just off-put by the movie, and it's a movie that wants to be unique and wants to be kind of silly and, you know, show the worst of the Gucci family, but it just turns into the worst scenario that you can have for a movie. And, you know, I love Ridley Scott. I love his kind of, you know, his tour of how he's as a director and his press tour, but I think everything about this movie is a complete failure. I'll be fairly honest. I didn't like this movie at all. I think it's just worthless in every route, and it's just a terrible movie overall. Why people like this movie, I'll never understand, but I thought it was a terrible movie. So at number 8 is House of Gucci, and number 7 is Number 7 is, of course, a recently released Netflix animated kids movie called Back to the Outback. This is a movie that apes Madagascar, which I didn't care for in its own right. It's a movie that has no soul. It's a movie with terribly voiced actors and stuff like that. It's just a movie that has nothing of value for kids. There are much better films out there. I'll even give Luca, which I was not a huge fan of, much more credit for at least trying something different. But here's a film that Netflix commissioned to make, and like a lot of their films, it just completely fails on all levels. Doesn't really have a great message to it, and it's just not a very fun film. I'll be fairly honest. And I know it's a kids film, but kids deserve better. They got Sing 2 this year, so it's definitely a positive. But for this film, I just don't know what the point of it is. It's like Norm of the North. It was just made to make money for Netflix. And yeah, it's a terrible movie. So at number 7, Back to the Outback. And at number 6, we have... Oh, dear Evan Hansen, how you ruined this year that is 2021 with your music. Dear Evan Hansen may be a great Broadway musical, but it is a terrible adaptation of a movie. This movie is boring. This movie is filled with terrible people. This movie has an actor who won a Tony for this character, who's way too old for the role, should have been given to someone else. And I don't know what went wrong here. This is, that's the problem with musicals. They just don't seem to work sometimes in film adaptations. And everything about this character is just bad. It really is. It's some of the worst concepts and ideas about feeling sorry for someone. What he did was inexcusable, and this movie is just absolutely inexcusable. It really is. It's a movie just with terrible songs, with terrible dialogue, with terrible everything, and at least Julianne Moore tries in it. But yeah, it's a terrible, terrible movie. So at number 6 is Dear Evan Hansen, and at number 5 we have...
Maniacal laugh. Maniacal laugh.
So this film was actually on my most anticipated list for like the last 2 years, but got pushed back because of the pandemic. This movie should never come out. It's another Netflix movie. It's directed by Joe Wright, written by Tracy Letts, who's a fantastic writer, has Amy Adams, Gary Oldman, I think Julianne Moore or something like that's in this movie. I don't know what happened with Woman in the Window, but it completely falls apart from the moment it starts playing. It has one of the worst endings I've seen this year, and is a film that is just baffling on all aspects. It's a horrible movie to watch. It just doesn't make any sense, and it makes me hate doing anticipated lists because they always fail me in every aspect or knowledge. I don't know why I even try sometimes, but this movie is just bad. It really is. It's poor performances, poor direction, poor writing, and just overall a terrible, terrible film. So definitely not recommended. It's up there once again with Netflix's, abilities to put out terrible films. But, there are worse films than this. So at number 5, Woman in the Window. At number 4, we have... So number 4 is another movie that just released recently as a recording of this video. Agnes was a film I was looking forward to, believe it or not, because I thought it had a cool, interesting idea with the church and with possession and demonic, things and stuff like that. Maybe it was going to hit into like Exorcist or something like that. That's not what this movie is. I'm still not going to spoil it for anybody who wants to watch it, but this movie takes a turn halfway through the movie. This movie has characters that completely just kind of disappear. And this movie doesn't know what it doesn't know what it wants. It doesn't know what it needs to be. It tries to be clever and has just the most off-putting, weird, strange concept I've ever seen for a movie. And I understand what the director was going for, but you have 2 movies in one in this, and it's baffling to watch. It's once again mind-bogglingly stupid, and I feel bad for everyone involved. Even the director, who was trying to be unique, just completely fails on all levels. So number 4 is Agnes. I wish for more, but there you go. So number 3 we have... So here's a movie that everybody's been waiting for quite a while. It got pushed back because of test audiences, because of the pandemic, because of everything involved. Directed by Doug Liman, had of course Daisy Ridley and Tom Holland. I think Mads Mikkelsen was in this movie, a whole bunch of famous people, and I don't know what happened to Chaos Walking, but this movie is a complete turd. This movie is not good. The concept's amazing, but just the way it's delivered, the way the execution happens, this is very similar to something like Jumper, where it has a cool idea, but it just doesn't execute very well. There's too many decision-making things that don't make any sense in this movie, and just overall, this movie just fails on every single level of trying to be a unique sci-fi film, and it was put out way past the prime of when it ever should have been put out. It's very much an early 2000 sci-fi film, similar like something like Voyagers, and it just doesn't work. And even though I like Tom Holland and Daisy Ridley, I just think they deserve much, much better. And it's just a film that finally came out after much, complaining and everything on the internet, and they got what they deserved. It's a terrible film, so it's a shame. It's one of the worst of the year, and it's something I probably will never watch again. So number 3 is, of course, Chaos Walking, and at number 2 we have So I got a lot of pushback on New Order. New Order is a film about a revolution. It's a film about the takeover of a country. It has a great opening, a great starting point, but it pushes forward too quickly in time. Everything gets really convoluted and confusing. The characters do stupid things, and it's just a movie that I was kind of taken aback by how much I wasn't liking it. It's not the violence, it's not the graphics, content in the movie. It's the fact that it just doesn't have good things to do, good things to say. It's a movie that is not well written, it's not well directed, and just for 89 minutes, I was just baffled by what I was watching, why it was making why it was doing the things it was doing. And like I said, the time jumps just completely ruin this movie. You get really lost and confused, and it's such a shame because, like I said, it has a really interesting purpose, like Noturno, which I'll talk about in my best list. That film, for what it's trying to do, at least tries to have a coherent narrative, and this film doesn't. So this film was, I don't understand it. I don't get why it was even put out, and it just feels like a great concept that was completely just not well executed. That's the only thing. And it's a terrible movie. It's not the worst of the year, but it's one of the worst I've seen this year. So it's a shame because I was really looking forward to it. But it is the unfortunate nature of, when you kind of just lose the concept of what you're going for. And speaking of losing the concept of what you're going for, number 1 is interesting. So number 1 is what the and drumroll, this film, Vanquish. There's not much to say about this film that I haven't said in my review already. This is a movie I was looking forward to because it's George Gallo directing. Ruby Rose, Morgan Freeman was in this movie. But this movie is bottom of the barrel action. This movie has some of the worst action I've seen in quite a while. It's up there with Slender Man as one of the most baffling movies I've ever seen in my entire life. And it's a movie with decision making that is so pedestrian, so amateurish, that it just completely it boggles your mind how something can be from such great creators and be so inept. Even Morgan Freeman looks completely bored in this movie. They had him sitting in a wheelchair for most of the movie. This feels like a movie that he was paid lots and lots of money for and just kind of sits there and does nothing. Ruby Rose tries her hardest and doesn't have anything to work with. And just this overall story is so nonsensical, so haphazardly done, so scatterbrained and scattershot that it just completely falls by the wayside and just completely fails on movie making levels of every aspect in the world. So there's not much more else you can say. If you've seen the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you've seen my comments, people absolutely agree with my assessment of this movie, but I would stay away from this movie. Even if it's like a 99-cent movie, please don't watch it. Maybe watch it if it's on like Hulu or something, but even then, I think you're wasting brain cells watching this movie. So it's the unfortunate nature of, having films that come out every year. There's always going to be that one worst of the year. And unfortunately, that is Vanquish. So at number 1 is Vanquish. Going to be up there with Slender Man as one of the worst films I've ever seen. So, but anyways, that'll do it. That'll be my worst of the year for 2021. I hope I wasn't real negative for the rest of the year, which is only a day away before January 1st hits. But we also have, positivity coming soon the next day, which will be, of course, be the best of the year for 2021, which is a list I really like talking about. So with that said, that's going to do it for the worst of 2021. Comments below. Love you to know what your worst of the year was. If you have a top 10, let me know what your worst top 10 were. But otherwise, that'll do it. If you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell, top the phone that's coming next. If you like any of these videos, awesome. Hit that like button, and we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out.